Good evening, everybody. My name is Bill Michael, and it's my privilege to be the Executive Director of UChicago Arts and the Logan Center for the Arts. And it's so great to have you here, and so great to see so many friends and friendly faces in the audience. We are thrilled to be joining our friends at the Center for the Study of Race, Politics, and Culture and the Seminary Co-op in tonight's event. This building actually opened 5 years ago, and 5 years ago, we had the pleasure of welcoming Miss Angela Jackson here, to do a commissioned poem when we opened this building. And we have been fortunate since then to celebrate a few of her books, and we're thrilled to be part of this evening to celebrate her latest book, both because it is another great work that she has written, but also because it celebrates the incredible life of Gwendolyn Brooks. And we are so excited to be partnering with Gwendolyn Brooks 100 and Brooks Permissions and Armis Brooks to help so many organizations and institutions across the city, the state, and this nation celebrate such a wonderful woman on the 100th anniversary of her birth. And we know you're going to love tonight. And there are events that are happening all over Chicago and the state and the nation for the next several months. But in the next few weeks, you want to come back here on the 7th for Brooks Day. Brooks Day at night will be in the Performance Hall, and I am told, and I don't know if any of our friends from that committee are here, but I am told that there will be 100 performers on the stage of the Logan Center celebrating the 100th birth of Gwendolyn Brooks. Wow. There will be cake, there will be drinks, there will be pre-performance, and then we are going to make this all happen in an hour and a half. You don't want to miss it, both because it'll be a great celebration and it'll be fun to watch 100 folks come across that stage as we celebrate the 100th anniversary. And then we're also pleased on a new event that is just now being publicized to be partnering with the Chicago Literary Hall of Fame on a bus tour called Gwendolyn Brooks, A Life in Bronzeville, which will be on Saturday, June 17th from 10 to 2, leaving from the Logan Center and ending with a discussion here as well. Many, if not all of these events are on the Armis Brooks website or the Brooks Permissions website, and we certainly hope to see you back here often. And thank you so much for joining us for this special evening to celebrate this incredible book. And it is now my privilege to introduce our colleague and friend, Tracy Matthews, from the Center for Study of Race, Politics, and Culture. Thanks for being here.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. I want to welcome you all here to the Logan Center. As Bill said, we're so very honored to be supporting and launching this next work by Miss Angela Jackson. It's called A Surprised Queenhood in the New Black Sun. She'll be in conversation with Emily Hooper Lansana this evening. And as Bill said, this is part of our ongoing celebration of Miss Gwendolyn Brooks' 100th birthday. I want to thank the co-sponsors for tonight's event, her press, Beacon Press. There are books outside. I know you noticed them when you walked in. Be sure to pick up the copies of the new book and also the back list books, and there'll be a signing briefly after we finish our conversation today. We'd like to thank the Reva and David Logan Center for the Arts for hosting us, the Seminary Co-op bookstores, Bill Michael and Lee Fagan from the Logan Center, Alex Houston, Colin McDonald, and Peg Wander from Seminary Co-op, and Dara Epperson and Julius Jones from the Center for the Study of Race, Politics, and Culture. We're very excited that we have Ms. Jackson and Ms. Lansana here with us tonight, and I'm going to briefly read their bios, and then Ms. Jackson will come up and read a bit from the first chapter of the book. Poet Angela Jackson is the fifth of 9 children. She spent her early life in Greenville, Mississippi before moving with her family to Chicago's Southside. She earned her BA at Northwestern University and an MA in Latin American and Caribbean Studies from right here at the University of Chicago. While in Chicago, she became a prominent member of the Organization of Black American Culture and edited the journal No Mo. Jackson's free verse poems weave myth and life experience, conversation, and invocation. She is the author of numerous collections of poetry, including Dark Legs and Silk Kisses, The Beatitudes of the Spinners, which won the Carl Sandburg Award, and a National Book Award nominated And All These Roads Be Luminous, poems selected and new. She's also written several plays, and her novel, Where I Must Go, won the American Book Award. Her other honors include a Pushcart Prize, Tri-Quarterly's Daniel Curley Award, the Poetry Society of America's Shelley Memorial Award, and grants and fellowships from the National Endowment for the Arts and the Illinois Arts Council. Emily Hooper Lansana is a performing artist, arts administrator, and educator. She's most known for her work with the performance duo In the Spirit. For more than 20 years, she's performed as a storyteller, sharing her work with audiences throughout Chicago and all over the country. She's been featured at the National Storytelling Festival, the National Association of Black Storytellers Festival, and at a variety of museums, colleges, and performance venues. She also enjoys passing on traditions to young people and as a coach and mentor with the nationally recognized Rebirth Poetry Ensemble. Her work seeks to give voice to those whose stories are often untold, especially those of the African diaspora. And she currently serves as the Associate Director of Community Arts Engagement here at the Logan Center. And so, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Angela Jackson.
Oh, it's so many of you here. And so many people that I know. How nice. I'm going to begin by reading a little bit from A Surprised Queenhood from chapter 1. Grant me a voice and speaking eyes. It was an indelible announcement written in black and white for all to see. The first nationally published poem of Gwendolyn Brooks appeared in American Childhood in October 1930 when she was only 13 years old. Earlier, at 11, she published 4 poems in a local neighborhood paper, the Hyde Parker, foreshadowing her brilliance. It was a brilliance that would shine through decades and across nations, bedazzling and impacting hundreds of poets and millions of audiences in all walks of life. Gwendolyn was a black teenager living on a quiet street in Chicago's Bronzeville neighborhood at 4332 South Champlain Avenue, where her family had lived since she was 4 years old. Bronzeville, the name coined by an editor of a black newspaper, the Chicago Bee, was named for the color of the area's inhabitants. In those days, Bronzeville proper stretched from 31st to 39th and from State Street to Cottage Grove. It was a jewel of colored masses in a segregated space. The people were too often poor and illiterate, but they were also industrious and dignified, creative in music, language, dance, and style. They were the salt of the earth and birds who managed to fly with cramped wings. Gwendolyn, ever observant, settled in to learn the ways of her people, the geography and genius of Afro-America. Hers was a protected space guarded by father and mother. She and her brother Raymond were nurtured and shielded by their father David, a janitor at McKinley Music Company, and by their mother, Keziah Wings Brooks, a former school teacher who had given up working in the classroom to guide her own children. Gwendolyn was loved. So we begin.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. I want to start out by acknowledging that Surprised Queenhood in the New Black Sun, The Life and Legacy of Gwendolyn Brooks, is the first biography on Ms. Brooks to come out in over 15 years. And a biography is a certain way of telling a story. And as I understand, this is the only biography that you've written, and I'm curious if you could tell us a little bit about your process in the development of this biography and what your experience was like.
It was very difficult. In the first place, I had never written a biography and had not intended to write a biography and never will write another biography. The reason I wrote this biography was everything kind of flowed into this one moment. What happened was our mother had just passed away, and I was looking for something to fill that grief. And one day I got a call from Rakia Clark at Lincoln, who said that I had been suggested as someone who might write a biography of Gwendolyn Brooks. Now, there are only two people I would have even considered writing a biography of, and that would have been Gwendolyn Brooks and Hoyt Fuller. So I was excited at the possibility, but I did not want to say yes without first checking it with Miss Brooks' daughter, Nora. So I emailed Nora, and Nora said yes. She said that I was one of the few people that she would have said yes to. So that worked out. Now, what was my process? I had to try to find as many books and articles that I could about Gwendolyn Brooks, and I told friends what I was doing, and they immediately started trying to help me. My friend, Dr. Jacqueline Sims at University of Missouri, sent me a download of all the articles on Miss Brooks from the Chicago Defender from 1938 to 1975, and that was an invaluable resource for me. And I borrowed books from the library or bought books on my own, and got books from Lucina Eugene Perkins, who was very helpful. I also began interviewing people who were close to Miss Brooks, beginning with Haki Matsubuti and Nora and Lucina Perkins, Ann Smith, Val Gray Ward. I hope I'm not forgetting anyone. Let me see who else I talked to. Oh, Brian Smith, her student, Karash Ali Lansana, your husband, who was her student at Chicago State and very close to her, as were you. And I interviewed you as much as I could tie you down. And that's about it.
So I'd like to sort of jump into the text and the work as it explores her life, and to just start off if you could talk to us a little bit about her beginnings and her early life and how that impacted her development as an artist. And the section that you read from the first chapter kind of gives us insight into her early beginnings as a writer.
Gwendolyn Brooks was writing, we know, from the age of 7. She may have been writing before. It was at the age of 7 that she showed her mother her book of rhymes, and her mother, being very encouraging and ambitious for her daughter, said, "You're going to be the Lady Paul Laurence Dunbar." And from there, her mother encouraged her, and her father to encourage her in every way to devote herself to her craft. She did not do housework when she was younger. As she grew older, she did have chores, but at first her mother relieved her of housework and did most of the housework herself, so that Gwendolyn could just read and write. When she was 11, by the time she was 11, she was writing a poem a day, sometimes 2 and 3, and reading 1 or 2 books a day. So she was a very intense worker and developed quickly. In her teen years, her mother, when she began sending her work out when she was about 13, after her father had brought her a desk back from the McKinley Music Company. He brought her a desk, and that was her headquarters. So she would send her work back out and get it back the way writers do, the usual rejections, but that didn't deter her. So early on, in about 1938, she began publishing in the Defender. And from there, she published in the Defender 75 poems over the course of a few years, because she was in there like once a week. So she was known to people, to readers of the Defender who were in Chicago and the other places in the country where the Defender was circulated. She, in 19, I don't want to, there's some things that overlap, so I want you to ask me about her activism so I can tell you about it. So,
Why don't we would like for you to share with us her beginnings as an activist?
Okay.
And how.
So, after she graduated from Wilson Junior College, well, while she was in there, she had expanded her circle of friends, because she did not have that many friends when she was growing up, because she was not very popular because of not only her color, but her hair, and she did not have a quick wit at that time where she could say witty things, and she wasn't athletic, so she didn't have any of the things that would make you popular. So she wasn't popular in high school, but when she got to Wilson Junior College, she met more friends, more people that she had things in common with. They directed her to, at her later years, after she graduated from Wilson, she became a part of the NAACP Youth Council. And that included certain members like Dr. Margaret Burroughs, John H. Johnson, and other people whose names probably aren't as familiar to us. At a certain point, man came and stood in the doorway because he had heard there was a girl there who wrote poetry, and he wrote poetry. And Gwendolyn looked up at this young man standing in the doorway, and she told her friend, Margaret, who was then not Margaret Burroughs, but would be Margaret Burroughs, that's the man I'm going to marry. I don't know how she knew. She did. That was in 1938. In 1939, they married. In 1941, a rich white woman socialite who was a reader for Poetry magazine and the president of the Renaissance Society here at the University of Chicago, was looking for some talented young Negroes with a literary bent. So she asked at the NAACP and got the names of them. So Gwendolyn, Henry, Dr. Burroughs, and Margaret Danner, and a few others were invited to this group called, that went by several names, the Visionaries, and any other names. And they met at the Southside Community Arts Center. And they met weekly, and they learned about modern techniques in art. And her work developed from there. Now, when she was in the NAACP Youth Council, they were very activist then. They protested against lynching. Gwendolyn Brooks was the press publicity person for the group, and I won't tell too much of the book. For the book, and she was the press and publicity person for that. Yeah.
And so when we think about the social-political context, which you started to talk about a little bit, when reflecting on Ms. Brooks' life, I have heard said that there was a shift in 1967, where people began to describe her as a consciously Black artist. Can you talk a bit about that?
Okay. Now, Ms. Brooks always wrote about what was going on with Black people throughout the 50s and the 60s, and throughout the 40s and the 50s. She was in touch with what was happening. She wrote about Emmett Till, Medgar Evers, Little Rock, all of that. Whatever was happening, she wrote about it. So, but what happened in 1967 was she became consciously Black and made like what was an announcement that she was Black. And she was influenced by younger Black people that she saw at the Writers' Conference in 1967. People like Amiri Baraka, and she met Nikki Giovanni there. Later on, when she came home to Chicago, she started a group for Blackstone Rangers, and Don Lee stopped by there. He and Walter Bradford helped organize that. And after the Blackstone Rangers workshop ended for her, but continued on its own, she met with some of these younger Black poets, Don Lee, Walter Bradford, Carolyn Rogers, Rhonda Davis, Mike Cook, and a number of others, Jahari Amini, a number of others. Many of them were also members of the Obasi Writers Workshop at the same time. So, but she was influenced by them, and they were and she was influencing them because they were at the points in their lives where they were trying to get their life maps together, where they were trying to figure out what they would do with their lives. And they were influencing her in making her go deeper into her Blackness, her Black consciousness, her sense of the whole systemic nature of racism and classism and the way the exploitation of Black people is interrelated with economics. So they were informing her of that, of shaping her worldview. But at the same time, she was helping them know how to get themselves together in their lives as young people.
The title of the book comes from a section from her 1972 autobiography, Report from Part 1. Here's a quote. I who have gone the gamut from an almost angry rejection of my dark skin by some of my brainwashed brothers and sisters to a surprised queendom in the new black sun, am qualified to enter at the least the kindergarten of new consciousness now. New consciousness and trudge toward progress. I have hopes for myself. One of the things about this book that resonates with me as a Black woman and as someone who knew Ms. Brooks closely is the ways in which you bring to light her story as a Black woman. And I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about that.
I've talked a lot about that with your husband, correct? We talk about how revolutionary she was even from her first book, A Street in Greenville, with the poem, The Mother, to write about abortions in 1945, when the whole topic of abortion was hidden and secretive, and you wouldn't even say it out loud. That was a revolutionary. And in the Ballad of Pearl May Lee, where she talks about how this whole business about colorism and how the Sammy boy would want her in the dark because she was dark and dark skinned, but he didn't want her, he didn't desire her, and it wound out he got lynched because he fell for a white mama. It was kind of like, get out. She also, she was a lot more aware of the suppression of women than people would recognize. In her last talk that she gave, the Jefferson lecture, one of the people that she spoke against was a Russian poet and she talked about how he would probably dampen himself at the whole business of suppressing women, you know. So she was very clear about how women must not be suppressed. And when she spoke directly about what was then called the women's liberation movement, and as opposed to the Black consciousness movement and the war between the two, she would say that Black men and Black women must proceed together, and we will do so as long as Black men treat us right, as long as they are considerate of us. But at the same time, she recognized that she supported equal pay and equal benefits for women who did the same job as men.
You touched on it a little bit when you were talking about her work with the Blackstone Rangers, but I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit more about the influence that she had on other writers, on younger writers and artists.
Ryan Smith, who was her student at Chicago State, talked about her the fierceness of her red pen and how to see that red ink on their poem kept them on the moving toward excellence. I think she challenged us all to be better.
I know that I had the privilege of being able to, at times, drive her to readings, and that whenever one accompanied her to such an event, you had to be prepared to wait for a long time afterwards, because whether there were 10, 15, 20, or 100 people in line, she would sign every autograph. She would take her time with every person. She had such an incredible generosity of spirit. And when I think about that, I think about that as being part of her legacy. And as you reflect on the stories that you gathered in the research for the book, I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit more about what you imagine her legacy.
Sonia Sanchez said that specifically, that she had learned to be generous from Gwendolyn Brooks, that she learned how to treat younger writers from Gwendolyn Brooks, how it's important to have something to share to younger writers, how we have to pass it on. It's a part of what we must do, to give time, to add any resources that we can to younger writers and younger people in general.
All right, we're going to open it up for questions from the audience. I think everybody can hear you. Could you talk about your personal relationship with Gwendolyn Brooks?
I was not an intimate of Miss Brooks. We were, I think, we were close, but not, that wasn't like I was hockey with her, or, or, she did things for me that I didn't even know until I reflected upon them, when I really thought about it. Like when she was what is now called the Poet Laureate, she had me read in D.C. as a part of that reading series. That was an enormous gift to me. I knew it was a gift when she gave it to me, but when I think about it now, I know it was an astonishing gift, because I did not have a big book. I did not, when I had first started writing fiction, she called me one day, and she said that she was calling to let me know I had won an award with the Illinois Arts Council. And I started to cry. And she said, "Why are you crying?" I said, "Because I don't have any money." And she sent me check for $65. Now there were other people she sent more. A lot more than $65. But that was enough for me. She recommended that I write a poem for the Illinois Arts Council when she couldn't do it. So she did, it was like she moved pieces on the chessboard for me, even in ways that I probably don't even know. And I appreciate that.
We all do. seem to be able to maintain an incredible balance, which I think is often difficult for those of us who are artists and mothers and wives and teachers. And she was able to maintain that kind of relationship where she could influence others, encourage others, and also keep her work driving forward. And I think that is something that is in many ways remarkable and encouraging about her story.
She struggled as a younger woman with that though. You know, when her children were younger, she had a hard time with that. You know, getting her finding time for her own work and taking care of her babies because her mother didn't live with her. Nobody, she didn't have anybody to help her. She had to take care of her kids. And up until the time when Nora was independent in like 9 or 10, there were some times that she couldn't go off and give a reading because she didn't have a babysitter. So she had to negotiate motherhood.
Balance. Other questions?
Hi, my name is Cynthia. Thank you both. I really love the title, Surprised Queendom, and the idea of, happening upon our queendom, if you will. I'm curious, in your writing of this book, what surprises did you come across, and what unexpected things did they reveal for you? So what surprises did you find? Can't see you, it's hard.
What surprised me about her?
Yeah,
her
what
early
surprised you about
activism.
that process?
Her early activism with the NAACP Youth Council, that was a big surprise. So it just told me that she was blacker than she gave herself credit for being, and her consciousness had been there from early young adulthood, yeah.
Hi, first of all, I want to thank you, Angela Jackson. You got me interested in poetry at a workshop many years ago. You had me write a poem about my nose. It was red, so I really enjoyed that. I want to ask the question. I've always enjoyed the satire, the satirical moments in Gwendolyn Brooks' poetry. And I was wondering, if you could talk to that or recommend a couple poems.
Recommend a couple of poems by Gwendolyn Brooks.
Probably a lot, yeah.
As you know, that changes with my mood. Whichever one I will choose. Right now, I'm liking the Sermon on the War Plan and several strengths from Drowse in this campaign and went about the war plan saying no. My people, black and black, revile the river, say that the river turns and turn the river. And it goes through. And that's my favorite right now, and I'm going to I see you, Nora Brooks Blakely.
Hello. I'm curious to ask, what do you think is, not the secret, but why do you think she's been able to resonate with generations and generations of people, but...
What'd you say?
Why is she able to resonate with generations and generations?
Oh, you could probably answer that better than I think because she was devoted to telling the truth.
Yes.
I was going to give the same response in that I think it is because she tells the truth. And I think it is because the way in which she tells the truth, that the experiences that she intimately examines with her craft are experiences that we can all relate to. And they are experiences that I think transcend space and time, and the reality of our things that happen in our day-to-day lives, as well as the reality of the forms of oppression that we continue to battle. And that she had a fierce way of being consistently committed to telling the truth.
She even wrote about the truth, and as the truth came, but we know
Hello, Angela.
Hello, how are you?
Oh, okay. Rudolph Reed was Oaken, and his wife was Oaken too. And his good little boys, and as they were Oaken as they grew. I am not hungry for berries. I am not hungry for bread, but hungry for a house where at night a man in bed. Yes, that's one of the reasons why women will always resonate with me and all the young people I communicate with. Thank you.
Over here.
Hi, I just wanted to know, what do you think inspired Gwendolyn Brooks to write the poem We Real Cool? Because I'm a retired English teacher, and I did that with my students, and each class I did it with, they loved it. And, you know, when she wrote it, I just wondered what actually motivated her to write that.
You know, there's a video from 1966 where she talked about how she was inspired, moved by poverty and the distress of people, the desperation of people. She also talked about, in another place, talked about when they lived on East 63rd Street, how she found the poems just outside her window. She could hear the poems. I think just being in touch with her environment and the people, and being an acute observer of people. You know, the heart can see too.
Ms. Jackson, thank you, first of all, for being here this evening. I'm so appreciative of your time and your energy and your love. What challenged you the most in this work that you put together? What kept you up and troubled you as you were working on this? Because I know you wanted to get it, you wanted it to be accurate, you wanted it to tell the story powerfully. What do you find was probably one of the most challenging aspects of
Just write it.
just the whole
The whole thing. I would write something and then go lie down, and then I write something some more. And help the rest. If the whole process was challenging, because it's narrative and it's also, and they asked me to interpret and
Yes. Thank you.
Angela, why did Gwendolyn Brooks start writing at a very young age?
what and what.
Why did Gwendolyn Brooks start writing poetry at a very young age?
Why did she write at a young age?
Yeah.
I think because she liked to read. And that's what happens with a lot of poets and writers. They love to read, and out of that love of the word, that impulse to write happens.
Hello, Miss Angela. I'm going to ask you a question that we've talked about somewhat, but I've never really gotten your full response to this, okay? So, you've heard me say before that I believe that Ms. Brooks took what her mentor Lincoln Hughes taught her and what he brought to us in terms of detailing Black life, right? And that she took it to another level with greater detail, greater minutia, greater intimacy, because she's a finer poet than Langston, which gets me in a lot of trouble. See, that's getting me in trouble now. What do you think about that?
I couldn't hear you.
So you're not going to respond? You just want to stay on the
Ask
dance?
me about Langston Hughes and Brooks.
Huh?
What did he have?
He said that,
You mean to repeat it?
Yes.
Okay. Can you hear me, Ms.
I
Angel?
can hear you now.
You're not ducking and dodging. Okay, so I believe that Miss Brooks took what her mentor Lincoln Hughes did, what he taught her, which was to distill and write the language and the music and the stories of Black life, of Black urban life in specific. And I believe that Miss Brooks did it better than Langston did, with greater detail
Better than who?
than Langston,
Okay.
because I believe she's a finer poet.
She was a better poet?
Yeah, that's what I think. What do you think?
That's a matter of personal preference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good answer.
Obviously, I think she is. So, you know what? I don't think that could have been if Gwendolyn Brooks was down.
No question. There's no question about that.
You know,
No question.
you know. Trying to make trouble.
so, on that question of Nora, Ms. Jackson would like to know if you have anything you'd like to add to the conversation.
I was just sitting back here quietly. Yes, I'll say what I think Angela didn't say, and that is that she's not giving herself enough credit for, she's not giving herself enough credit for how truly valued her writing skills were by my mother. You know, this was not when my mother had these different things like the reading in DC and stuff. It wasn't, I know this cute little colored girl writer in Chicago, I think I'll give her a shot. It was very seriously that she deeply, deeply respected Angela's talent. And when I was bemoaning my less than them writing skills, my list of people that I gave my mother was Lerone Bennett, Angela Jackson, and Hakeem Madabuti. And my mother looked at me like, you know, you're really not giving yourself a lot of pressure, are you? I mean, so, and that was because she saw her in that list, you know, as well as these really qualified, deeply capable, competent, incredible writers. And so she's not going to say that for herself, so I'll say it for her.
One of the things that I appreciate, and I'm sure that you will all appreciate, as you purchase and begin to read A Surprised Queenhood is the fact that as you are reading this biography, you can tell that it was written by someone who is a poet and a playwright, because there is such an economy of words as well as a lyricism in the way that the story is told and the way that the memories are shared. And so I think that that's really striking about the work. As we were talking about Ms. Brooks and this question of consciousness, I reflected back on the poem To the Diaspora. And when I met Ms. Brooks, it was, I believe, in 1989, just after I moved to Chicago. I was invited to perform in a tribute to her. And each of us was given the opportunity to select a poem. And I selected To the Diaspora because it spoke to me in such a deep way about this question of our consciousness and what it means for us to understand who we are as Black people. And so I just wanted to take a moment to read some from To the Diaspora. You did not know you were Africa. When you set out for Africa, you did not know you were going, because you did not know you were Africa. You did not know the Black continent that had to be reached was you. I could not have told you then that some sun would come. Somewhere over the road would come, evoking the diamonds of you, the Black continent. Somewhere over the road, you would not have believed my mouth. When I told you, meeting you somewhere close to the road, to the heat and youth of the road, liking my loyalty, liking belief, you smiled and you thanked me, but very little believed me. Here is some sun, some, now off into the places, though rough to reach, though dry, though drowsy, all unwillingly a wobble, into the dissonant and dangerous crescendo, your work that was done, to be done, to be done, to be done. Are there any other questions?
I would like to know, how you? All right, I'm glad you're here. Thank you for coming. I'd like to know, one of my favorite artists, Oscar Brown Jr., and did a song, a little back for it, but Gwendolyn wrote. And the NAACP was the reason that they pulled this song, because they used the word Black instead of color. Well, what was her reaction to that?
To the NAACP
Yes.
Youth Council?
No.
Well,
He's saying that Oscar Brown Jr. Made a recording of, I believe it was Live in the West.
No, DeWitt Williams
Of DeWitt Williams.
on his way to Lincoln Cemetery.
So Oscar Brown Jr. recorded that. And the NAACP was upset about the recording.
Oh, because it had the word Black in it?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So he's asking, do you know anything about Ms. Brooks' response to that?
No, other than any artist, you know, that had happened to her several times where people were upset with a word in a poem, and usually something ridiculous. Something. She knew better.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. I'm so grateful that you have written this book. Thank you ever so much for coming and speaking with us tonight. I don't know if there's any truth to the adage, but they say that those who can't teach, but I think Gwendolyn was meant to teach. She had to. Is that your opinion also, that it would have been a crime had she not? I mean, she taught at Chicago State, and it was like imperative. Do you not think that also?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
A lot of writers teach and write.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to thank all of you for contributing to the discussion.
If you join me one more time in thanking Emily Hooper Lansana and Tom Wolf and Reva